So Jeremy, I thought we might start by you talking about the course that you're teaching at the Drucker School at Claremont, and how you've integrated mindfulness into Peter Drucker's understanding of management. Can you do that?
Sure. Well, it started now 11 years ago. Through the help, everyone at home should probably know this, that Mirabai Bush is a real pioneer in this field and has been quietly working for decades to bring this sort of material into a greater public awareness. And Mirabai Bush is in a large way responsible for the work that I've been able to do at the Drucker School. So I want to publicly thank her for
that makes me happy.
all of her efforts over her many, many years of putting up with me. So in the late 1990s, we moved, my graduate advisor and I and a colleague moved from the University of Chicago to Claremont, to the Drucker School. And the Drucker School is a school of management, not a school of business. And Peter Drucker was, even though he's considered to be the founding father of management, we tend to think of that as business management. But what Drucker was really interested in primarily was how do you create a functioning society. Not a utopian society, because he was well aware of human darkness and how that can manifest. But his primary goal was how do you create a society that simply worked. And in that writing, he talked about a lot of things which are germane to mindfulness and in a way speak the language of mindfulness without ever uttering the word mindfulness. One of which was that in order to manage anything else, managers had to first manage themselves. And at that time, I was doing research on people who were quote unquote successful professionals in the world who were also long-term mindfulness practitioners. And in the late 90s, finding those people was kind of a challenge. And that's where the Center for Contemplative Mind and Mirabai Bush and Beth Ann Albro Fisher helped a great deal to unearth these people. And we had, my research group and I had the pleasure of meeting many of them. And one of the themes that kept coming out of these conversations, and they would be with Fortune 500 CEOs and world famous architects and scientists and writers and journalists and all kinds of very interesting people who basically use knowledge to make their living, was that if they didn't have this practice, they think that they would be dead. They would say something like, my life is so complex, I'm being pulled in so many directions at once that if I didn't have something to keep me grounded and centered and present, I think I'd be dead. And at some point, I realized that mindfulness could answer this question that Drucker posed of how do managers manage themselves. And so I set about trying to craft, in a way, how would you create the language of mindfulness that suited a managerial or business audience, that didn't sound too flaky in a way, or something, as I like to say, it wouldn't arouse the immune system of a manager. Because I think, as we all know, as you get into this, it makes perfect sense that somebody with a great deal of responsibility who has influence and power over others should probably be mindful of their own actions and the results those actions take. And so my target client, in a way, was a conservative engineer. It's probably a 40, 50, 60-year-old male, and who wouldn't necessarily be the one who would show up at a meditation center or an ashram, but whose life would tremendously benefit from having these sort of skills. So that started out as one very experimental 7-week course called Managing I think I called it managing your experience or something like that. It sounds very esoteric now. And then it frankly became a big hit. And now that 1 7-week class has blossomed into 28 weeks of mindfulness training in a organizational or executive capacity. The one other thing I should say is that we don't focus just on doing meditation practice, but we also learn a set of very systematic practices, which I call live fire. Live fire is when the bullets are real; they aren't made of rubber. That the student or participant can use in action in daily life. So one of the ways I was trained in mindfulness was how do you be mindful in action in a very systematic way, and how can you start to see what your mind is doing while it's doing it, and either intervene or somehow shift out of that reaction. And so a lot of the work that we do in the class, there is certainly a part that is about sitting on a cushion and doing the good work of a dedicated formal meditation practice, but the bulk of the class is using the student's own life as the laboratory, and and then to see what happens. So it becomes very immediate and relevant. We don't have third-person case studies. We have first-person case studies, and the case study is that person's life and work.